Welcome to Under the Radar, a show about independent iOS app development. I'm Marco Arment.
And I'm David Smith. Under the Radar is never longer than 30 minutes, so let's get started.
So today we wanted to talk about WWDC. It was just announced as we record. It was just announced a little less than a day ago. And we wanted to talk about whether you want to go or not, because right now they're doing this kind of lottery system, just like in the last couple of years, where you can register to get a ticket, and you have to commit to buy it to register. And then if you win the lottery and if you get awarded a ticket, they charge your credit card that you've registered with them, and it's not refundable. So you basically have to pre-commit $1,600 to potentially getting this ticket if you want a chance of getting one at all. So this raises the obvious question for a lot of us of, well, do I want to try for this or not? And David, I'm curious, did you register? And if so, why?
I did. I have a lot of reasons why I registered for WWDC. It's very important for me personally, and some of these things will only apply to the way that I run my business and the way my business is structured. But for me, WWDC is a very unique opportunity, like the actual event, going to it. Beyond just the things that I could do at home. I think this year for they're going to be live streaming the sessions. In past years, it's been the videos were available a few hours later. And so if you were just wanting to go to the conference, if you just wanted to get the information that's presented from stage, there's really no need to go to WWDC. There's no reason to go to San Francisco. You could just do that at home. For me, though, the thing about WWDC that makes me want to go, there's a main reason and then there's a kind of a secondary reason. The main reason for me is the labs. So every year at WWDC, it's kind of the way it's structured, just probably is good to have a bit of a quick overview. There's on Monday, and this year it's from, I think, the 13th to the 18th of June. Now, on the Monday, they'll have kind of the big keynote addresses. In the morning, there's usually the executive one. So, where Tim Cook and Phil Schiller and those kind of people will come up on stage and give the broad strokes of Apple's vision for the next generation of their software, typically. So what's coming in iOS, OS 10, watchOS, tvOS, the big high-level things. We'll break for lunch, and then they'll have the developer State of the Union type of thing, where they talk in greater technical depth about all the things that were said in the morning. And then the rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday, is broken up into, there'll be sessions, which are, sort of power or keynote presentations, talking about the various technologies that are introduced or things that are new, things that you want to learn about. And those are going to be live streamed and available. And then downstairs at the Moscone West Center, where it's held, they have the labs, which are where a bunch of Apple engineers, essentially, I think they usually say it's something like about 1,000 engineers are on hand at various times throughout the week. Will sit down and they'll have sort of office hours where you can come in and talk to people on the various technical teams. So if, say I'm having a problem with Core Motion, I can go to the Core Motion lab and I can sit down and I can talk to somebody who either wrote the APIs that I'm working with or knows the person who did. And for me, that's the part that is completely irreplaceable and in some ways, honestly, kind of essential for the way that I do my business, because I have kind of made a living on looking at Apple's newest platforms and their newest technologies and being one of the first people to adopt them in whatever form that looks like. So whenever there's a new, I just did with Activity++, there was this new API for accessing activity data, I submitted my app the moment it was possible to do that. And, that works out. And for me, WWDC is this tremendous opportunity to go and talk to people about not really the what of what was announced, things that you get from the video where they say here's the 5 new APIs, here's the new things, here's what's going on, but being able to go and talk to an engineer about kind of the why, and to be able to say well, this is I can go and what I'll tend to do is I'll sit down and kind of bang out a really rough prototype of something I'm thinking about maybe working on this summer, go down to the lab and be hey, this is how I'm doing it, and is this a reasonable approach? Nothing even more specific than, is this a reasonable approach? And you will often be, from conversations then with those engineers, you can understand why they're doing things the way they are. And for me, that's kind of essential. And I'm registered for a ticket. I got my fingers crossed that I'll be one of the ones who's been selected for that reason. And then secondarily, and a bit more amusingly, I love going to WWDC because it's almost like every year, being an iOS developer, there are a lot of things that are frustrating. There are a lot of things that are challenging. And that can kind of wear on you after a while. And the thing about WWDC is I've had the privilege of going, I think 6 times before, 6 or 7. It's quite a few. And every time I go, I always leave WWDC feeling excited, motivated, and just kind of like jazzed about the platform and the cool things that are coming. And you could say it's kind of like going back. It's like I go to San Francisco and I drink the Kool-Aid again. And that's kind of like the negative way to look at it. Or you could just say like it's a time to go and reconnect with the things that originally made me so excited for this platform and kind of wash away some of the things that may have been frustrating in the previous year and kind of recenter and focus on, okay, what's going to happen the next year. And so for me, the $1,600 and throwing my name in the hat like just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, I have mostly the same kind of feelings about it. I also registered, and I also, put down the potential $1,600 to potentially get a ticket. For me, it's mostly about the community side at this point, because the technical stuff is, while it is strong and it is very good, you also don't, increasingly you have to be there less and less to get it. Because every year, it used to be back in the olden days, back when you could sell apps for money, it used to be that they would put up the videos like 3 months after the conference or something like that. And then every year, as the conference has become more and more oversold and overcapacity, they've tried to address that issue of like there's so many people who want to be there but just can't get a ticket because there aren't enough, or they can't get out there for scheduling or work reasons, or the other problem is it's just a lot of money and a lot of people cannot afford to put down the probably all in $4,000 that you'll be in to do this trip, something like that, because a big part of which is the hotel, but we'll see how that goes. So it's a lot of money. It's a week off of work that you have to go do this. So a lot of people can't be there. So what they've been doing is making the videos available earlier and earlier, to the point where, and also dropping the requirement that you even had to be a paying developer member to even watch them. That used to be the case. Now, any developer account can watch them for free, and you don't have to have been there. You don't need the $100 full membership level. Any developer can watch these videos, and the videos themselves have gotten better. They have transcripts, and it's searchable, and all that stuff, and the production value has gone up and everything, and they're now releasing them so fast. Last year, they were released like within a day or so of the talks happening, and this year they're saying, as you mentioned, this year they're going to be live broadcasting them, which has never happened before for anything beyond the initial keynote. So increasingly, there's less and less reason why you need to be there as a developer, and that's why in past years I have been so scared that I wouldn't get a ticket, and I've been very lucky that for the last 7 years I have gotten a ticket, and although 1 year I had to sign up 2 developer accounts to get it. but this year, if I don't get a ticket, I don't think I'm going to be as disappointed, and I'm still going to go. And there's a whole question of like whether you should go out to San Francisco for that week anyway, even if you don't get a ticket, because there are other things to do. There are other events that people put on, just not Apple, but there's other conferences. There's the Layers conference. There's AltConf. There's a lot of like meetups and user groups, and there's just all these developers who are all in town that week. And so there's lots of social events. If you have any developer friends, or if you just go to a bar near Moscone, you will find developers, and you can make developer friends. So there's a lot of reasons to be there regardless. So if I don't get a ticket this year, I think what I will miss the most is kind of the fun of like being in the building and like going to sessions live and going to the keynote, waiting with you and John and Casey in line and like doing all that stuff. Well, will I really miss the line? Maybe
it's part of the fun, right?
Yeah, I'll miss the camaraderie of the line, but maybe not the duration of it. But ultimately, I will have fun that week out there, regardless of whether I get a ticket or not. So the ticket will basically, if I get the ticket, the value of it is in structuring my day and giving me a place I have to be all day, every day, and a venue to go to, and things to see, and talks to see, and kind of the focus of having it be like my only job this week is to watch these sessions and then socialize at night. But my primary job this week is to watch these sessions live, because when they post the videos afterwards, it's a little harder to find the time to sit down and do it, because if you're just sitting at home in your office, you have all sorts of other work to do. You might have a family to also take care of. So like your whole life is pressuring you during all other times of the year that you should probably be doing something else rather than sitting and watching a whole bunch of videos for APIs and stuff that you might not even be using yet, that you might just think might be interesting. When are you going to find time to do that? Well, if you're there, your job is to go to those things. That is the reason you're there. You have that time kind of carved out, and that is what your focus is. If you're not there, or if you're there without a ticket, it's less focus. So I feel like I will miss that kind of focus and forced attention on the sessions, because that's a good thing. However, probably the biggest thing I would miss would be the Moscone sandwiches. No, just kidding. It would be the labs. It would be, as you mentioned, like having the labs, having access to the Apple engineers has not always, but has reasonably frequently provided me with pretty good information, oftentimes very good information. So that is the part I would miss the most if I don't get a ticket. But the rest of the conference, I feel like if you've gone to them for a few years, you kind of know what it is, assuming they don't change it, massively, which is not necessarily a safe assumption, because they're already doing like the keynote at the Bill Graham Auditorium, and so we're going to see like there's some changes in the event here. But I feel like I've gotten so much out of it in previous years that maybe it's time for a break. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm certainly conflicted on the issue. That's why, like, if I do get a ticket, okay, well, I don't need to think about it for another year. And if I don't get a ticket, I guess I'll see what happens.
And I think that's fair. Like like WWDC it comes, at least for me, it comes into this strange middle ground between being like strictly rational and somewhat emotional. Like I have an affinity to it. That is not just logical. It's not just like, oh, it makes sense to go here. Like I have good reasons that I can justify to myself. And I think there are real reasons for like, I need to go and talk to people in the labs that are good. But if I didn't get a ticket, it would be sad in a way that is just emotional. Like I remember I think it was 2009 was my first WWDC.
Yeah, me too.
And like, I remember how exciting that felt. And there's a certain amount of nostalgia and just like affinity that I have for the event, where I think about it and it's just kind of fun. Like it's everybody there like loves and cares about the same things that I love and care about. That they're all doing the same job. Like it's a really fun environment to be in. And that emotional part of just like every time, I mean, I've been to it for years, but I still like when it finally comes right before the keynote and you're kind of everyone's kind of, finally found their seats, you're sitting down, like the excitement of just being there in that room with everyone's kind of waiting and anticipating like what's going to happen, what's going to come. And in some ways, like it's kind of impactful too, because the things that are about to be announced are potentially like completely like could potentially upend my business or change dramatically what I'm planning to do for the next 3 or 4 months. And so that puts a bit of stakes on the announcements. And so then being there for it, like there's such an emotional excitement that comes from it that I think I would miss even more than like, I would really be sad to not have the labs, but just to not have that feeling of like, I don't know, it's like excitement is the best word I have of just, while I don't love getting up and, at like really early in the morning and standing out in the San Francisco, I guess, winter, because it's freezing cold in June. But like standing outside in that San Francisco winter where it's just freezing cold and you're kind of just like mulling around for a few hours before they let you in, which who knows, maybe at this new, Civic Auditorium, they'll have a better scheme for that rather than just like wrapping us around the block 3 times. But there's just something exciting about it. And if you're a developer who's never been to WWDC, it's it's a hard thing to like, I don't even like explain that feeling that if you're looking at it and it's like, like I can get pretty much all the information I need from just staying at home. Like that is absolutely true. Like there's no like strict need to go to WWDC. The videos are live streamed. If you have questions and problems and like, that was something that would have been helpful to go to the labs, there are people at Apple you can reach out to. Like there's a whole evangelism team whose job it is to field similar types of questions. But it's just never going to be the same. And so I would encourage most people, especially if you've never been, to try it. Like put your name in and, it's obviously everyone's mileage will differ. And like, you may just find it not really your thing. But for me, every year I've come back, I've always wanted to go back the next year. I've never gone to WWDC and then come back and said, you know what, that's probably it for me. I'm probably done. Like every year I come back just more and more excited. Even as things have changed. Like it's been a wildly different thing. Back in 2009, what would that have been? They were announcing iOS or probably iPhone OS 4,
something like 4 or 5,
something like that. Like it is so much has changed since then. It's kind of the crazy things I remember when they introduced iCloud. Like that was like a big deal at one of them. Or
that was Steve's last presentation, or his last big one at least.
Yeah, it was certainly, and obviously that side of things is even more crazy when I think about the fact that I had sort of had the privilege of seeing Steve Jobs' keynotes. Mm-hmm. Like that's kind of special in a way that's almost, like a little overwhelming. Like it was like having been able to, I think I saw 2 or 3 that he presented at, and just, like seeing the legend is really cool. So that's kind of where I am. But I think, like you say, like I'm going out either way. No matter what, I will be in San Francisco from the Sunday before to the Friday after. Like I will be there. If I have a ticket, awesome. Like as you say, like it's lovely to give some structure. If I don't really know what I'll do during the day. I imagine I will watch some of the sessions. Maybe I'll do a bit more actual programming rather than watching and thinking about programming, which I don't know if that's better or worse. Maybe it'll be a little easier to socialize a bit more. But one way or the other, I'm going to be there. Because I think even not being inside, like past the door and being inside, there's still something exciting about going to a place. Because I think it was Jason Snell was talking about this, where it used to be like there were events like Macworld Expo, which was like a place where people could go to like be around like-minded people, like people who cared about the same kind of things. And there's something kind of fun and exciting about that. And now the main event for Apple-minded people, where if you go there and just sort of like by osmosis will be surrounded by people who care about the same stuff. Like it's that 1 week, this week in San Francisco. And so like I would just go just for that, just to be around these people. There are many people who I only see once a year, and I see them in San Francisco during WWDC. And like I have sort of like whole friendships just based on that. And so it's kind of fun to just have that as a thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's why like the idea of not going out there at all just didn't even occur to me. That's why as soon as the date was firmly announced yesterday, I booked the flight. Yeah, and I don't know if I'm going to have the conference badge or not yet, but I booked the flight, and I booked the hotel months ago because hotels are easily cancelable for no money. And so, like, I booked all the stuff because the idea of not going never even entered my mind. Of course I'm going. This is the one conference that happens every year that it is like a fixed block on my calendar. It is non-negotiable. Like, it would take a lot for me not to go. Like, it would have to be like some like massive family event, like having a baby. Like, then I wouldn't go. But otherwise, like, it would take a lot for me not to go to this, whether I have a ticket or not. And a little bit more on having tickets or not in a second. But first, I wanted to thank our sponsor this week. We are sponsored this week. We decided to do something a little bit different this week. We're sponsored this week by ourselves and our own apps, because we both have apps that you can buy. And it turns out we have a way to advertise for fairly low money here, because we don't have to pay ourselves and we advertise for our own stuff. So my half of this advertisement is, please, I would love it if you can give Overcast a try And if you're already an Overcast user, and if you're not a patron yet, I'd love it if you could become a patron. You get a cool dark mode, and you get to support the service and support server costs and stuff like that, and my amazing extravagant lifestyle. So, so David?
I would like to encourage you, if you do not already, to try one of my fitness and wellness apps. So I make a couple of apps. They tend to have a plus plus at the end of them. There's Pedometer plus plus, Sleep plus plus, and Activity plus plus. Apps that help you measure and understand your fitness and level of activity throughout the day, and hopefully help you to make more active choices. And so if you haven't already, please go check either some of those apps out or Marco's Overcast. And, give us a try and support us that way. It's just if you listen to this and you like the way we speak, maybe you like the things we make too.
Thanks. So if you're planning on going into WWDC without a ticket, there are a couple things that I would add to this just a little bit. So first of all, I agree with you, David. I'm a little concerned about what the heck I would do all day. The good thing is there are a lot of people who go out there without tickets. And so there are like little gatherings. Sometimes like some of the local companies, like I think Twitter hosted like a keynote watching party last year. Was that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, and so like sometimes like local San Francisco companies who have offices in the area will host developer get-togethers and meetups and little events to watch some of the live streams. A lot of times people will just watch them, like they'll like rent a little conference room in the hotel that they're in and just have like a small gathering of people to watch them there, or people will just watch them privately in little groups of like 2 or 3 friends together. So there are a lot of people who go out there. The only thing is if you already know people, if you already like have established friends and contacts who will be there, it's a lot easier. If you're going out there and you don't know anybody yet, I highly suggest trying to get that ticket, because it's a lot. It's not that it can't be done to go out there without knowing anybody and find people and make new friends, but it's a lot harder if you don't have a ticket. Because if you're in the conference building, then you're going to be walking around and everybody around you is going to be an iOS developer or a Mac developer, or a soon-to-be iOS or Mac developer. Everyone around you is going to be part of that social group there, and there's going to be so many other people there who, in the building, who are looking to meet people, looking to socialize, and looking to make new friends, looking to make contacts. Whereas if you're walking around the streets or sitting in a hotel room, it's harder. Again, it can be done, but it's harder. So if it's your first time out there, if you don't have a lot of friends already in the community, I do highly suggest trying to get that ticket. It will help a lot. And otherwise, if you are, regardless of whether you know anybody out there or not, if you're going out there to hang out and to meet new people, don't be afraid to go up to people who you see, who you recognize, if they're well-known developers or podcasters or bloggers, whatever. Go up to them and say hi. Do not be the person who sits back and then tweets later, "Oh, I saw John Gruber today, but I was too scared to say hi." Because you know what? All of us, like people who you might know in this community, we're all just normal people. You don't have. It's not like we're Brad Pitt. You don't have to like be worried about coming up and saying hi, because like it's really cool for us to have anybody in real life know who we are, because that's amazing, because every day is not like that. And so go up to people. I think you will find that this is a very friendly community, and we are all, the vast majority of us are all socially awkward geeks. And so, if you are worried, if you are a socially awkward geek, you don't need to be worried about that, because all of us are, and we are very welcoming. And we are likely just as nervous trying to have conversations with people we don't know as you might be. But please come up and talk to anybody you find who you recognize. Also, don't be afraid to at reply, to mention people on Twitter, to ask people like, hey, where are you hanging out tonight? Like, are there any good parties that you might know, or any good gatherings that are public or whatever? Like, if you need access into a certain social community or group of friends who you're trying to meet, or, certain developer, a certain writer, whatever else, you can be a little forthcoming. You don't have to like stalk anybody, but like you can be a little forthcoming, because this is ultimately a very open community, open to new people, welcoming of new people, and there's so many people out there who are all, we're all basically the same kind of person. We all like the same stuff. We are, many of us, as I said, are geeks, and we all like to say hi to people who share a common interest. So it's totally okay to be a little forward socially in meeting people when you're out there.
Yeah, because I think, and it's just to sort of jump on, sort of extend that too, is I remember clearly that first year going out to WWDC and knowing nobody. Like I don't think I couldn't think of one person that I knew when I was going out there. And at this point, my apps weren't particularly well known. It wasn't like I had a podcast or a blog or something that people would know me by. Like I was still fairly new to this. And I just remember, but I still had people, I had people that I admired, people that I respected, that I had in the back of my mind to like, how cool would it be to meet these people? And it took a lot of effort. And I remember it being very difficult to force myself to not just like go back to my hotel room every night and go to sleep or whatever, like, or just work on my code or like things like that. Like it was so easy, and always like the path of least resistance is always like, you know what, I could go to this event, or I could go and just hang out in like at the Moscone Center. I could do that, or I could not, and I could just have dinner by myself and then go back to my hotel room. And some nights I would have the courage to go and like go out, and some nights I didn't. And the reality, though, looking back, is I wouldn't have the friends I have now and the connections I have in our community if every night I had just had dinner by myself and then went back to my hotel. That like I have dear and precious friends to me now who I got to know because at some point I, went up to somebody and said, "Hi, I'm David Smith. I love your work. And it's a pleasure to meet you." Like there's so many people who I just admired and respected, who then that's how I met that way. I mean, it's weird when they say like, that's how I met you, Marco.
Yeah.
Like, I remember
in front of the W,
like I remember meeting you at WWDC, and who I would, at that, if I had like, if I could have told my future, like my past self, like in a couple of years, you'll be doing a podcast with Marco, like it would have sounded completely absurd to me. Like at this point, I think I was a big Build and Analyze fan, and it was this kind of whole thing. And you never know how these things are going to play out, and you just never know. But if you don't sort of just like, you know what, I'm going to do this. It doesn't feel good, but I know that it'll end up better.
Like flossing.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly. It's just like flossing.
Meeting us is like flossing.
Exactly. It's such a wonderful analogy. But I definitely would encourage people to do that. And like sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. Like in terms of sometimes you'll have really awkward interactions that feel like it's like, man, that didn't really go well. But other times it really will. And it's the kind of thing, like there's no like magic answer for socializing. It's not like, oh, here's these 3 things that you should do, but it's the kind of thing that you just keep doing. And then you'll look back on and see how those opportunities, how those moments of just being like, you know what, I'm going to go up and say hello. Will eventually, you do it enough, it gets easier, and it starts to build some real connections that, you can look back on and kind of just be amazed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes, So I guess that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you for everybody for listening. I hope that if you have the means and opportunity to consider going to WWDC, I hope you register to get a ticket, because you have to do that basically now to have a chance of getting it. For everybody who registered who really needs that ticket to go, I hope you get one. And I look forward to seeing everybody this year.
Yeah, I imagine you'll be able to, one way or the other, you'll be able to find Marco and I in San Francisco. So if you see us, by all means, say hi.
You can definitely spot David by the color of his shirt.
It's usually very bright and blue.
Exactly. Basically, the brighter version of the color of OS X folders. Is that about right?
It's about right. Yeah. Or the maybe I think the better one to go for is if you have one of those blue developer watches that Apple put out when the Apple Watch was first introduced. If you see something that's that blue, that's probably me.
Exactly. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. And always floss. And we will talk to you next week.
Bye.
I don't floss.